The Edge of Wonder presents Contact in the Desert 2018. Special guests featuring SASHA and Janet Lessin.
Wrapping up our CITD series, today we have a double feature, first with Janet Lessin, who describes her contact with ETs since she was young, and her husband, Dr. SASHA Lessin, an expert on Sumerian and Anunnaki history.
Hey guys, we're back at Contact in the Desert. This is Ben with Janet Lessin, who is a radio show host, author, and experiencer. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Janet.
Okay, I'm a lifelong experiencer, and that propelled me into investigating what's going on this planet. I've always felt like stranger to strange land, and I didn't belong here, and it's not my home world. And,
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So that started me being an avid researcher. Now, having been an experiencer and having contact with aliens since the crib, literally in the crib at that age, and under regression and hypnotherapy, I uncovered that I actually remembered pre-verbal, before I came into this avatar, into this form, my agreement, the contract I made with myself and with, Source God, to come down into this incarnation. And I am not unique. This is happening. I'm a researcher. I interview experiencers and whistleblowers, a lot of whistleblowers.
You're talking about like how you came here and you had a vow and everything that you made. I actually remember coming here with a vow too. So
wonderful.
I had an experience when I was a little kid where it was the same kind of feeling where I was just like, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, I don't want to be here. And my family and friends were all there. And then I was a little kid, but I just had this vision and I was told like, oh, you chose to be here. Like, you're on a mission, and like God sent you here, and you can't go back until you finish your mission.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, and then I was just this little kid, and then I was just like, okay, and I always kind of had this with me. So
yeah.
It's just very, very interesting.
Right.
So tell me about your experience, because I'm sure a lot of people would want to know like what you saw, what kind of beings did you interact with, what do they look like, how are they?
Okay, I was picking buttercups in my yard. I was 4 years old, and all of a sudden I went to step over this little step of a fence, and at that time I was teleported, beamed. I was just instantly on board a ship, and they were receiving me like I was returning royalty. They really treated me well, and they took me to a theater, which I learned later was constructed for my convenience, front row center, and the screen opened up in front of me. It was panoramic, and they were showing me the first view was the total destruction of the planet Earth. And this is a common theme. They show you the potential of what can happen. Now, it's not just a visual on the screen. You're getting all these images. You're getting sights, smells, and you're seeing things blow up and whatever, volcanoes and earthquakes and everything. The next scene was the planet was full, total, but it was less destruction. So it was more viable. And they kept showing less destruction, more life, and there were 12 negative realities. And then they shifted to the positive. And it got lighter and lighter until at the far end of the spectrum, it was utopia. And there were several very beautiful utopian-type realities. And then they said, which one do you choose? And I was taken aback, like, me? I'm a 4-year-old little girl. But I was also my eternal self. Simultaneously, I was aware of who I was, back to source, and the original decision to come. I was aware of my mission, that I chose it. Like you said, you chose to do this. You have to do it. So I chose the third from the most utopian, because I thought if it's total utopian, there's nothing left to do, and it wouldn't be very interesting. Upon making that choice, they returned me. Now, when I left, it was high noon, and it was probably spring. Buttercups are blue in Pennsylvania in spring. When I returned, the sun was setting, and it was just the most beautiful sunset I'd ever seen. And as they were leaving, I could still sense them above me. And this is another theme. And they said, you have come to the earth to do something that is important for all of mankind, all of humankind. And then I took that in. I felt elated that my life had meaning and purpose. And so I went to go into the house, and I just stopped. I said, I can't tell those people who are my mother and father and brother and sister what just happened. So something about me was wise enough to just keep it to myself, which I did.
It's funny, the same thing happened to me too. Like after I had and actually it was a beautiful sunset that was happening as well at the same time I was having this. And I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh, I just knew I wasn't supposed to tell other people about it until now. I mean, everyone you meet, I believe, there's a connection and reason behind it, and there's either a karmic reason or some kind of connection that we've had in previous lives or whatever. And I believe that, we're meant to be here to work together to help others, and I feel like that's my mission in life, is just coming here to help others.
Yeah, because I'm at the ambassador level. This is what I figured out through therapy, investigating, and everything. Just talking to those people, the picture starts emerging about what's really going on this planet and in the cosmos. So at one point, I went to smaller council meetings, and so apparently on this other level, I part of the decision making, and they value my input. I was at a meeting with 100,000. It was in a big arena type thing that went straight out 360, and you could see the whole audience. But if somebody wanted to speak, there would be a light that would shine on their where they were, but then they would project a hologram to stand in front of me. And so they were witnessing this conversation while they were still in their seats.
So kind of like Star Wars with the hologram? Was it kind of like that?
Holographic technology is available throughout I mean, if we can think of it and have it in our science fiction, it already exists, and then some, right?
That's what I've heard too.
Yeah. So they're asking me what it was like to be a human female in the 21st century on the planet Earth, and I said, help, we need intervention. We're going to blow up this planet in the next few years. We're killing the oceans and all the animals, and we've got the evil empire taking over our governments. And they agreed to, though. I mean, it's not in my time, it's in their time, but I think we have intervention coming, and they're assisting us. And yes, there are dark beings, but there are more beings that love us and are supporting us become conscious, and there is the Federation. Roddenberry was a whistleblower. He had to put it into science fiction. A lot of these people are putting things into science fiction because they can't bring it forth, and it's more accepted as science fiction.
Could you maybe explain some of the other beings, what they look like or how they are, or from your interaction with them?
So when I was at the 100,000 member council meeting, they were all the 5-star beings, and they have eyes in front of the head and that type of thing. And it's pretty easy for humans to see them and not freak out and go into fight or flight. But what they clearly told me is that there are beings that kind of look like a blob or formless, or there's interdimensional, there's higher dimensional, there's higher vibratory frequencies, things outside of our vision. But the ones that tend to visit the Earth are known. The common ones are these gray species that come in different heights, and some of them have big noses, some have no noses, some of them have little tiny mouths. And there's the tall grays, and they're different, and they're very slender, and they seem to be the leaders. And then there's the reptilians, and they come in different variations on the theme, these different colors. When they read you, they have you completely. There's nothing hidden. They've gone into every crevice of your being, and you are, and they get who you are. So you can't lie to a reptilian. It's a lot of energy for me to say that. But like I said, this week I'm coming out fully because it's time. It's just time to tell these stories.
Well, so we probably need to start wrapping it up here. So, Janet, is there anything else you want to say?
Well, being a contactee experiencer, I think it's wonderful. It's a magical, mystical life. I feel so bad. I interview people; they have bad experiences, and I always say, let me do a session, let me help you, and most of them can get to the point where they understand it. It was that higher agreement. like you and I have, that, you know, we come in here as part of our mission. We're here to end this vicious cycle of life, death, birth, you know, reincarnation, which keeps us locked in this dark negative matrix of war and corporate economic slavery. So if we can wake up, become conscious, aware of what's going on, we have a chance of creating a better reality for all of us, and we need all the information in order to do that. And that's pretty good.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Janet. Thank you.
The Edge of Wonder.
Hey everyone, this is Rob from Contact in the Desert for Edge of Wonder. I've got a really special treat for you guys. I'm sitting here with Dr. Lessin, who actually was involved in transcribing the Anunnaki tablets. So, Doctor, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you. I didn't transcribe the tablets. My teacher, Zecharia Sitchin, transcribed them, and I studied what he transcribed and what other people transcribed.
But you were involved with it, right?
Oh, you bet. I spent 20 years studying this stuff.
Doctor, you actually even brought the research even further, right?
Absolutely. There were many things that about our history that Zecharia Sitchin chose not to get into. And we know that the Anunnaki were not the first humans on this planet, but they didn't bother dictating the history of that they didn't want dictated. And it would be and they dictated all kinds of contradictory things. It would be like Ralph Nader and Donald Trump. History of the world would be very different.
So, Doctor, actually, there's a lot of contention revolved around, you know, these tablets and what the Sumerian culture actually does to our history.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there's also a lot of folks out there who are, you know, because it contends, or not contends with, but even though it supports, but it revolves around affecting things that were in the Bible. What do you have to say to folks who maybe doubt the tablets?
I think the tablets are things these guys ordered their scribes to write. What happened with the people that wrote the Bible a long time ago, when Marduk's king Nebuchadnezzar burned the temple and took the Israelite elite hostage and put them in Babylon and Haran, and that's where they and this is where they're trying to write this history of the world, including in the Genesis part, from all the old records that they had, because they had this vast library and they were doing a great job. But they were trying to say, now our Lord, who is Yahweh, now didn't he have a temple? Because Prince Marduk went and burned it, Nebuchadnezzar burned it, and he didn't need one. Yahweh didn't need one, is what they came up with, because he's the God of everything and everywhere. That's what they were writing, and then they got sent back. They were allowed to return to Jerusalem. The Anunnaki, the guys that came from the sky, made a slave race, starting with first it was a clone, the Adamu, Adam, and then basically they said we took genes from Bigfoot's ancestor, Homo erectus, and we added minerals and copper, and we used Anunnaki women, who are Homo sapien women like us, only bigger. We used them as mother surrogates so that the mitochondrial DNA would enter these children. And our geneticists exceeded their mandate to just make clones.
There's a lot of different alien races out there, and the Anunnaki are one of them. Like, from, you know, your studies of these things, like, you know, what did they look like?
They look just like us. They're among us. They're big, strong people. They're brown people, and they're white people, both. There were different groups of Anunnaki who were pitted against each other, and Nanar's, or Allah's, Anunnaki were assassinating and killing Marduk's Anunnaki, and these guys are doing these great big battles with each other till very, very recently. Basically, in this part of the world, Prince Marduk would get different nations to fight each other or become economic slaves of the other, and make things so bad that people try always just keep it all stirred up, keep them pitted against each other, so that they never realize that Marduk, this one Anunnaki prince, is behind all this. Finally, the Federation of Light intervened and said, you've got to knock this off. It's time to end the Kali Yuga, the junk times, and go to the good times. And the reason is all this adversity that we let Mark put you through seasons you to where you could create computers. I know you did it for military purposes, but now if you use your computers intelligently, you can stop war and you can stop polluting your planet. And now is the time to really look again to the message that we're going to try again.
That's great. Thanks so much. So this is Rob and Dr. Lessin from Contact in the Desert.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of The Edge of Wonder. Be sure to hit like and subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss a single episode from The Edge of Wonder. Wonder, wonder, wonder.